Do it.
Do it. Okay. Well, welcome. It's 11:33, so we're starting 3 minutes late. I hope everybody can hear. If you have any issues with your sound or video, you are welcome to type something in the chat, and you and I can try to figure it out while Stephanie's talking. Stephanie was originally supposed to give a presentation this month to our lunch group. So I contacted her. I'm like, would you like to do it over Zoom? And she was willing. And so this is kind of our second go at a PowerPoint presentation over our Zoom meetings. Yep. This is actually going to be recorded. And I'm going to share that recording with Stephanie, and then she is going to add it to her blog. So I will send that email out when that one's ready to go. So you guys can watch this later and refer back to stuff. So you don't have to take notes or anything. You'll be able to watch it later for sure. And with that, I'm going to let Stephanie take over.
All right. Thank you, Angela. This is so fun. This is my first Zoom presentation. So if there's a few glitches, bear with me. But I have been on plenty of Zoom meetings, the last few months. But this is kind of the first one that we've headed up together. So this will help me gain some confidence, because I definitely have other educational topics. And so if I get comfortable with this, then maybe I can figure out sharing more of our information. So, but anyway, yes, so I am Stephanie Humphreys, and I am originally from Cedar Rapids. I own a business called Right at Home, and we do in-home care, as the name implies. And my professional background is physical therapy. So I used to work in the home health industry or environment as a physical therapist. And so kind of between that background and now what I do with Right at Home, I have seen a lot of different homes and have provided a lot of different recommendations and provided some guidance as far as what people can do in their current living situation to make it safer and to maybe accommodate their own individual function and their abilities. If their goal is to live in their home as long as possible, then there may need to be some modifications done to it over time in order to, accomplish that goal. So I personally think, home is the nicest and, safest place to be. And that's just only been reinforced more this year with the lovely pandemic going on. So with that, I'll just launch it now. So let's talk about safe aging in place. I assume if you're tuning in, is that what everybody's goal is today, to kind of live where they are for as long as they can? Probably.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Good. That's most people's goals, I will say. So with that, take a look at this typical house. There's a lot going on. And so throughout this presentation, I just want everyone to obviously consider, because we're going to go through kind of area by area and room by room, and some of the main things to draw attention to or think about. And obviously keeping your own home situation in mind and kind of what you can do. There's really easy modifications that can probably get done, in the same day. And then there's major renovations, that people sometimes have done to their homes. And then obviously, I've worked with people that they've just built an entirely new house that is handicapped accessible. So it's going to be a matter of just looking at, what your budget is, what your own, physical abilities are at this point in time. And it's a challenge for sure, because we just don't know what the future holds as far as how long we will have our current physical abilities and just what's going to happen down the road. But there's some general things that can be kept in mind and that can be done that really benefits everybody, no matter, what physical abilities you have. And I can sometimes I take this presentation even a step further because there are other considerations to be made when we're talking with people that have dementia or they're living with someone that has a form of dementia. So there's other things to consider, but that's kind of a different side topic. But certainly if anybody has any questions about that or knows someone with that diagnosis, there's other things to consider as well. So, but anyway, just keep your own home in mind and what your goals are, what your budget is, and then you can kind of figure out what you're able to do, you know, going forward. So a lot of times it's a good idea to, you know, if you want a good place to start is just consulting with a professional in the industry that can provide the right recommendations for you. And so that's something that I enjoy doing when a family calls and needs our services. I go out and meet with them for the first time. I like to see and want to see where someone lives. That just, you know, gives me better information of what to communicate to my staff of what to expect. And yes, a lot of times people will say, hey, I need to have some grab bars put in. Where should they go? Sometimes it's a matter of just moving some furniture around or getting rid of some furniture and just opening up the space. So just providing those recommendations. So I've listed here some local resources that can be helpful to give them a call, and someone could come out and take a look at where you live. So the Heritage Agency on Aging, they just have a wonderful different departments just satisfying all kinds of needs for the community, and their services are free. There's aging services out of Unity Point. A physical therapist or an occupational therapist could offer, you know, quite a bit of insight on how to modify your home. There are aging in place specialists. You'd have to probably do a Google search. I'm not aware of an individual that in this area that has that specific certification, but they are out there. Geriatric care managers. The VA is fantastic. We're a provider with the VA, and I have seen their staff come out to people's homes and provide a lot of different adaptive equipment. And they've also done different remodeling projects, particularly bathroom remodels that I have seen them provide, and also ramps. So the VA can be a great resource. AARP is another one. And then finally, something just to keep in mind whether you know you're assessing your home or doing it with family members or other professionals, you really have to consider, you know, the individual living there that has the kind of the least amount of function. You know, if maybe you're pretty independent and you're still driving and everything like that, but perhaps your spouse, for example, has maybe some early onset dementia, or someone has Parkinson's disease, or they've maybe had a stroke or something like that. And if they use a wheelchair or they use a walker or whatever, you know, you really have to modify the home from that person's perspective. So does that make sense? So keep that in mind. Or maybe even if it's a certain family member that likes to come to visit, I don't know, we might have to modify it for them. So any questions there? Or does anybody else know of other agencies or organizations that could provide this service? Maybe I'm missing somebody. Has anybody heard of anything else? No? Okay. Very
There's
good.
Johnson County has our Livable Communities group. That's
Oh yes, I've heard of them.
yeah, that's a good resource. They have an action teams. So if you have a question specific to how to come up with funding for a ramp, for example, that's usually where I turn people is to that.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to add that. Just making a note. And I've heard of that. I've heard of that. And I know there's Trail of Johnson County, but I'm not sure if this is part of their arena or not?
Trail is a paid service, so
Okay.
it's depending on subscriptions, but yeah, you can get
Okay.
assistance with in-home stuff.
Hmm.
And then they have a list of contractors that they've vetted, and they'll talk to you about how to work with contractors. So that's a
That's
really
cool.
important component of what they do.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Very cool.
Hi,
Okay.
everybody. I'm a little late. I just joined. My name is Scott, and I work with Habitat for Humanity in Iowa City. And
Oh, Scott.
I would be happy to provide a home assessment. So if you live in Johnson County, feel free to give me a call, and I'd be happy to take care of that for you.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm so glad you piped up because I need to list you on here too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I said, we'll be happy to do that. That's a service that we'll do without any charge.
Awesome. Awesome.
And I'm a certified aging in place specialist, and one of our construction managers is taking the training next month. So we'll have 2 people on staff that can do that for you.
I love it. Good. Thank you. Adding both of those. Yeah, so if you have more to share from your perspective, from what you see, yeah, please pipe up. It's great. Okay, so let's start, basically in the front yard, in the front of your property, whatever that is, if it's a single family residence or, even a condo maybe, or anything at all. So just thinking about how does the pathway look basically from your driveway, or as you can see there, maybe from your mailbox. What does that look like? So to make it as safe as possible, we want to keep our walkways clear. We want to make sure that the walkways are wide enough, if we would have to accommodate a walker or a wheelchair or something like that. Fix any cracks or uneven surfaces. Sometimes the different sections of the sidewalk get uneven, and it might be a good idea to address those. Who keeps up the property basically? So are you still in a position to mow the lawn, clear the snow, de-icing, all that kind of fun stuff in the wintertime, and thinking about, well, how much longer am I able to do that, or do I need to look at getting some help for that from a company or maybe a neighbor or a friend or something like that. But it's very, very important to keep those common walkways clear and safe, even in the fall, and all the leaves are coming down, and sometimes those leaves, they can be slippery. So it's pretty simple. It's an easy, straightforward way to prevent a fall or a slip and fall situation. So keeping those clear. Sometimes it's a good idea, especially you see in this photo, if you do have any steps, and I'd say most houses do, it's great if you can have like what's called a zero entry or a no threshold entryway, both into the home and also within the home, between bedrooms and hallways and things like that. So everything is just one level, and you don't have to think about stepping over a higher surface or maneuvering a walker over something. But that's talking about having a little bit more of a costly modification basically. But sometimes it can just help to mark those differences in elevation with some neon tape, or maybe glow in the dark tape, something that makes that difference in flooring stand out to you and to others that might be coming into the home. Okay. You want to make sure the pathways are well lit. Solar lighting is really nice. I see a lot of people utilizing those things along just every area that can be well lit. And that's another thing too, is that you want to look at your property, yes, during the day, but then, how does it look at night? And maybe it's a matter of adding more outdoor lighting or, motion detection lights and things like that. There's a lot more different safety features, like with the Ring doorbells and in combination with other lighting that just comes on when, motion is detected. So fairly easy, might require I know if you're a do-it-yourselfer, that's one thing, but might require talking to an electrician, of course, and having some of those things installed. So, Scott, can you think of anything else if we're talking about outside the property? Is he still there? All right,
he's muted, but I don't know if he's trying to talk. And
if he has anything to add, by all means.
I am really sorry, guys. I had to step out and take care of an invoice issue real quick. So I have been away for like the last 3 minutes. So I'm not entirely certain where the conversation was.
No worries. No worries. Does anybody have any questions so far, or think of anything else that you've encountered? And it's, again, who's going to keep up the property? And that even goes to landscaping, perhaps. Making sure shrubs and bushes and leaves get collected and, things like that. So it's safe.
I just have a statement, Stephanie. If it appears as though I'm not paying attention, I'm watching a larger monitor over here.
I appreciate that clarification.
Yes, I feel like I should be looking here, but this is clear.
Hey, it's all good.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's great. And I should say too that I can make, if somebody wants a printed copy of the PowerPoint, or I love just good old fashioned paper sometimes. And I can also email the PowerPoint as well. So just let me know. I am more than willing to share. So, all right. So we're walking into our front door, right? And so depending on your house, you're going to walk into, could be a front foyer, could be your living room. I don't know, a mud room. It doesn't matter. It's whatever it is with your home, just thinking about where you're at that point in time and maybe what needs to be addressed. And so we call some of those places, common areas. So kind of more the living rooms, the hallways, the front foyers, the places that, say if somebody was going to come and visit your home, that's maybe more where they would congregate, let's say, the not so private areas. So a huge recommendation, and is sometimes difficult for some, is remove rugs, essentially. I meet a lot of people that don't want to part with their rugs, but they are a number one, trip hazard, along with could be potentially electrical cording. So depending on how you have your lamps and your lighting, we want to make sure that all cords are out of pathways, where people walk and things like that. There are ways that I have discovered that if you need to have a rug, and I totally get that, especially at the front door. I have one myself, especially in the winter months and things like that. There are some really nice products out there to secure rugs to your floor, whether it's carpet, a hardwood floor, a tile, things like that. You want the rug to have a rubber backing usually. But even in addition to that, I have a variety of rugs in my own home, and even if it's rubber backed, it still moves. And so I've used some different products that have worked really nicely to hold rugs in place. And, I can give those recommendations too, if you'd like. They've worked well for us. Usually a brightly colored rug is more recommended because it's going to stand out to you, basically. And especially if it is a little bit darker in the home or you're coming home at night, then just something that's going to be more visible for you. If you have stairs, what kind of surface are the stairs? So they have a lot of different non-skid or non-slip adhesive strips. I have some of these. I was talking to Angela before we got on, and my office in Cedar Rapids is actually a pretty old house that was converted into a business space, years ago. But I've got old hardwood floor steps, and so I put on some stickers, friction stickers on there, so those can work nicely. I know some stairs still have like carpet on part of them, but carpet can be slippery too. And so I've seen people slip on carpeted stairs. And so sometimes it's a matter of even putting something else on the carpet to reduce slipping. That's important too. Obviously having handrails, that's probably a given. But sometimes you only have a handrail on one side, and it can just make a big difference putting handrails on both sides of a stairwell, or even in a hallway. If you've got a pretty long hallway leading to some different bedrooms or whatever, 2 railings on one side or leading down to your basement or downstairs. I meet a lot of people that still have washers and dryers, down in the basement. And so as long as it's still safe, I say, stay active as long as you can, but do it safely. So that can be a pretty easy addition, our handrails. You have to take a look at what is the width of your doorways. Sometimes, and with older homes, the doorways that lead into bathrooms and bedrooms, they're probably going to be a little bit more narrow. And so that you may not be able to go through and widen all of your doorways, right? I've known people that have done that, but that's not in everybody's budget. And so sometimes it's a matter of taking the door off. But what I think is really handy, there are actually swing away hinges. So you can put a different type of hinge on your doors, and that allows the door to swing open and basically lay flat against the wall. And that can really open up enough space that if you would need to push a wheelchair through there or a walker, then that makes it easier too. So a little bit quicker and less expensive switch can do the job for you. I see a lot more electric stair climbers than I thought I would. So there's definitely people investing in those, especially if they have a split foyer home, or like I said, they still have a need to go down into their basement or downstairs area. So electric stair climbers, does anybody have one of those, or do you know someone that has one that you can sit on the chair and strap yourself in and it just kind of slowly takes you up and down the stairs?
I have an outside, like an elevator lift,
Yeah.
but not on the stairway.
Okay, yep, and that's good. I was at someone's home this morning and they had one of those too. And I see those most often in garages. So yeah, perfect example. We talked about lighting outside, but we want to think about good lighting, inside too. And sometimes that's a matter of maybe switching out the light bulbs or just moving the lighting around to a more strategic place. So it's keeping the pathways clear, making sure we don't have an accumulation of clutter, old newspapers, or could be anything, recycling, it could be anything. But we want to, whether we use an assistive device or not, we want to keep our pathways nice and clear so we don't have a potential, trip hazard. Okay. Anchoring bookcases to the wall. Or wall units. I hear a lot about this for people that have babies and toddlers and young children and I had a child that loved to climb up on things, and so I can relate to this, but it's really recommended for everyone of all ages to secure and anchor heavy furniture that way. Thinking about the surfaces that we're sitting on. There's a lot of furniture out there that I think is just not that comfortable. It doesn't promote good posture. So we generally, as we get older, we want to get away from the chairs that swivel or that have wheels on them that could kind of sneak out away from us as we're sitting down potentially. I know my mom and dad, they weren't particularly happy with the cushioning in their sofa, but rather than going out and buying an entirely new sofa, they had just the cushions that you sit on. They had those restuffed with a higher grade, stiffer foam, and that suited them just fine. And then they'll do it that way for, as long as they can. So again, it's just some different adaptations at some different price points. So that's a good one. Making sure that, of course, the flooring is nice and smooth. I talked about earlier, when you get into the home, you can have these, transition points between vinyl and carpet, for example, or hardwood and tile. And so just taking a look at those transition areas and making sure that, we don't have carpet that's starting to curl up that we could trip on. Same mindset with rugs, basically, and tripping on the edges of those. And I don't like to recommend, lift chairs right away. I like to see people trying to get up out of chairs as best they can on their own to help maintain their strength and things like that. But there are cases where a lift chair might be warranted, or moving furniture around so the room is safer and just kind of makes more sense for that person's mobility. So sometimes those are recommended too. I know Medicare will pay for those depending on the individual. So you have to meet certain criteria. So any questions on some of those things? I hope I feel like this presentation can be a little bit overwhelming. So I think it's good that you'll be able to watch this at a later time if you want to hone in on a specific room, for example. So yeah, look at that. That's a lot of information. But it can be a good resource, I guess. So something to keep handy, and you can refer to it, down the road. Okay, so it's rough being old. I spend most of my time in the bathroom. Wow, are you taking anything for that? Usually my Kindle. Can anybody relate? My husband, he just spends a lot of time in the bathroom. That's just an excuse to get away from us. So the next room is the bathroom. And that is the number one place where somebody is going to fall, is the bathroom. And makes sense, it can be a slippery room, have a lot of humidity potentially, water on the floor, all that good stuff. And sometimes even the products that we use in a bathroom, shower gel, soap, shampoo, shaving cream, it's all slippery. So there's a lot to keep in mind when it comes to our bathrooms. I have a couple of examples shown there, but again, like I said, think about your bathroom. And there's a lot of different modifications that can be made, even from adjusting the level of where your toilet paper is. There's toilet paper stands. And so if you're finding yourself having to reach too far for your toilet paper, or maybe you have to reach back behind your back or whatever, maybe it's time to put that in a different place. The toilet itself, there's chair height toilets that can be changed out, and sometimes that's enough. Some toilets are pretty low, especially when we're out in the community at different convenience stores and restaurants and other shopping places. I can't believe how low some toilets are. So we definitely don't want that in our own home. So chair height toilet, or there's a lot of different adaptive equipment like toilet risers that can sit right on the toilet seat. Some secure better than others, I'll say that, and I could provide recommendations that way. Or you can do a combination of toilet riser with armrests on either side. So we don't want to use, especially if you take a look at the two sinks in this example that I have up, you really don't want to be using the sink to help yourself to either pull yourself up or to push on something to help yourself get up. If you have a very big, strong, stable, wood vanity, I would say that might be okay to use that, but I still hesitate saying that, honestly, because some things, if not secured properly, can just pull right out of the wall. So the armrests with a toilet riser would be your best bet for a toilet. You can change out the vanity. They've got the higher vanities now that you don't have to bend over quite so far. So maybe looking at changing out your vanity. Where do you bathe? My dad loved to take a bath, his entire life. And up till last year, he was still taking baths, but to be proactive. And he went ahead and got rid of his favorite bathtub, and he had a walk-in shower installed. So, which is great, because making those modifications before you need them is probably better. But, if you've got the tub situation there, again, back to using some different types of adaptive equipment. So there's different shower benches and shower chairs that can work very nicely. Handheld shower heads. So you have more control of where the water's going or where you can direct the water on yourself. What kind of flooring do you have? So if you are able to change out the flooring, perhaps, that would make it less slippery. And a lot of people like to have rugs in their bathrooms. I'm not one of them, because I just see a rug as a collector of hair. And there's me, and I have 3 daughters, and I have a dog. So I know that rug would just be full of hair. So I don't even bother with them. But again, back to the rubber backing on the rugs. And then, like I said, even taking it a step further and using an additional product to really secure a rug to the floor. Because we do have concerns about that floor being slippery too. So it can be a fine line. The bottom picture is really nice. It's a little bit overkill. I don't see a lot of bathrooms that have this degree of grab bars, but I really like this picture because it just shows some different varieties of grab bars and ways to assist yourself to safely get in and out of a bathtub or shower. So I like that picture a lot. Does anybody have any questions? Doing okay?
Yep.
We want to make sure we've got GFI circuits or outlets in our bathrooms. A lot of the newer construction, of course, will. But as my office is a case in point, there's a lot of older homes out there still, but they just kind of need to be outfitted with newer technology to make it safer. What is your water heater like? There are temperature controlled, faucets. So we want to make sure that we're not all of a sudden going to have scalding hot water coming out of our sink or our shower. So making sure we have safe temperatures of the water. So it's something to think about too. Good. That's a lot. How's everybody doing? How does everybody feel about their house so far?
Good.
Good? Right on. All right. So there's all that as a summary. This is kind of boring to look at, so I try to have pictures that people can kind of... Okay, so who can relate to this? We've got some great kitchen gadgets. What's this one for?
Yeah.
Am I right? Sometimes that happens in my house. I guess I don't have another picture for the kitchen. That's all right. Okay, so kitchen. Sometimes it's as easy as putting the most commonly things that we use. Maybe we have to store them differently. Maybe they need to go on a different shelf in the pantry. You know, again, evaluating your own physical ability and confidence. But I will tell you, you know, what I see a lot is a disconnect between what I'm seeing that person being able to do safely and what that person sees themselves doing safely. There's a lot of people that think, oh, I can still do that. I can still, you know, get up on a ladder and look for things in the attic and stuff like that. And I'm looking at the person from my perspective and thinking, you know, I'm cringing. It's like, please don't get on the ladder. So it's sometimes you need an outside perspective of what your abilities truly are, because we can feel and think that we can do them, but realistically, maybe we shouldn't. So rearranging the kitchen so things are within a safe reach and not thinking about trying to get up on a step stool maybe anymore to reach something in a high cabinet. You know, there's a lot of different tools that can be used for prepping our food. So ergonomically sound or safe, if we have issues with our hands like arthritis or neuropathy or something, there are lots of tools that can be used. Again, tapping into some technology and having more devices that will automatically turn off if they haven't been used for a period of time. So different appliances, stoves, again, back with being aware of temperature controlled water faucets to make sure we don't have water that's getting too hot coming out. Again, we have to think about who we're living with and what their abilities are, or, you know, from a cognitive standpoint, and maybe we have to store more, you know, quote unquote, dangerous items someplace else, you know, out of sight, out of mind, or sometimes they just simply have to be locked up, essentially. Probably goes without saying, you know, having a fire extinguisher, but honestly, if you feel like you can't use the fire extinguisher, get out of the house and call 911. You know, don't mess around with it if it's not something you feel like you can lift or handle or use properly. Your best bet is just to get out and call the fire department. We do get concerned sometimes for folks that they tend to maybe hold on to food too long. So just kind of making regular inspections of your pantry and your refrigerator, making sure we're not holding on to food that's out of date. I know it's hard to waste food. It's hard for me, but you're going to be better off just getting rid of those things. And then there's also eating utensils that can be adapted. Again, if you have difficulty holding the typical spoon or fork, there are ways that you can adapt utensils like that so people can continue to feed themselves, you know, and not rely on someone else. Anything else to add with the kitchen for anybody? Kind of the same information that I've already reiterated with looking at, you know, what's your flooring like, what's your rug situation, is how cluttered is it, or, you know, do we need to get a smaller dining room table perhaps, if you're downsizing, or, you know, children are grown up and off and out and, you know, things like that. So creating more space to safely maneuver around your house. So that kind of probably goes without saying now, but. Okay, stuff falling out of the closet, old pizza turning green, dust bunnies blowing around. My room isn't messy, Mom. It's interactive. So I have two children that this could be their bedroom. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, and that pretty much describes them. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. My dog loves it because if they do leave food, then that's a snack for our dog. Okay, bedrooms. Okay, should be a place of solace, right? And solitude and relaxation and on and on. But, you know, think about your bed. You know, I can go into places sometimes and it's a matter of maybe just adjusting the height of your bed. You know, I beds that are too high, and gosh, I still see people that might use a step stool to get into their bed, and you know, that's not necessary. You know, may not be a safe thing to do. So maybe it's changing out the bed or the bed frame. You know, maybe the mattress is fine, but we need a different frame to put that bed at a safer height. You know what I mean? There's different bed rails that you can buy. You know, if we need a little bit of an extra oomph or support to help us get in and out of bed safely, lots of different bed rails that can be purchased. And okay, Marilyn raised a hand. I don't know what that means.
I have a question or a comment. I've been trying to work this Zoom. I'm not the best at it, so it took me a while to get here. So you've gone on beyond the bathroom.
Yes.
But I have a stool right beside the tub, and I always take my phone and sit it on that right beside the tub in case I need
Perfect.
help. God forbid I have to call the police if I'm naked.
Do it if you need to. Yes, that's an excellent point.
Thank you.
I should add that to my presentation. You're not the only one that has pointed that out. So that's perfect. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Good. Good for you. Okay, yeah, so back to bedroom. So again, different bed rails that can be used. Some people need to go ahead and get a hospital bed or some other type of, I know a lot of the different mattress places now do sell bed frames that are adjustable. And so depending on maybe your physical function or, you know, maybe a certain diagnosis, you know, sleep apnea, reflux, maybe you need to elevate your legs or your feet because of some circulation issues. So sometimes investing in a bed that can be adjusted is helpful, or just a hospital bed. Plenty of people, Medicare does pay for those as well, and so does the VA. So certainly you have to meet certain criteria, but there's plenty of people that do get hospital beds in their homes as well. So those would be outfitted with all the adjustments that you would need, and the bed rails and everything like that. So what's that? Was there a question?
No, but I'll make a statement. I wish those hospital beds that they bring to your house are comfortable.
I know. I'm with you there. And, you know, if someone becomes pretty bed bound, you know, there are other different types of cushions, and there's air mattress things that have to be put on the top. You know, that might help a little bit. But if we're looking at trying to avoid skin breakdown or like pressure sores from being in one position too long, and even like with your own bed, sometimes it's a matter of adding a topper to it. So there's a lot of different options and products out there, really. But you're right, they don't have a reputation for being that comfortable. Yeah. I mean, I've seen situations that maybe, you know, one person needs the hospital bed set up, but they still want to sleep with their spouse, you know, and be with their spouse. And so then the spouse sleeps, you know, right next to the hospital bed, but maybe they're in a twin size bed or a double, just depending on how large your bedroom is. So, you know, lots of different arrangements to help people stay together and things like that. Again, with the bedroom, what's your flooring like? Some people eventually need to use a lift. We help people that they are not mobile anymore on their own. And so to move from a bed to a wheelchair or a lift chair or something like that, they have to use a lift. And you need to be able to push those around in the home, obviously. And so Tile is going to work better for that. Wood flooring. I love vinyl. There's a lot of nice vinyl plank products out there now that are really nice. And so just again, depending on budget and your motivation for, you know, staying in that home and things like that, people do make all of those types of adaptations as well, as far as changing out flooring and breaking down walls, you know, so it just depends on the individual. But, and then back to just kind of remind with doorways, you know, a lot of master bedrooms are going to have bathrooms, master bathrooms attached. So again, just looking at those doorways and those transitions and maybe thinking about using a cane or a walker over those and taking the door off, or the swing away hinges that can create a wider doorway for you. So good. What else? You know, sometimes even I meet people that, you know, they sleep in separate rooms for whatever reason, and, you know, which is fine. People need to do whatever suits them. And so sometimes we need to use a monitoring system. So a lot of different, usually made for babies or baby monitors, but certainly those products can be used for anybody, that the person that's more dependent, that they can somehow call out for help, or let the other person know that they need some assistance. So monitors can be helpful too. There you go. Backyard.
Can I make a quick comment?
Of course.
So also taking into consideration sleeping and getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, make sure you have night lights.
Yes.
Light up your path.
Absolutely. Yep.
That way you won't trip and you'll be a little bit more able to see what you're doing. So if you ever get a trivia prize from me, it'll always be a night light, because I want you to use that in your hallway. Safely get up, or having a lamp next to your bed directly so you can turn that on right away before you get out of bed.
Exactly. Nope, that's perfect. That's perfect. And a lot of times there's another presentation that I do. This is through, and I don't know if you guys might be interested in it, but it's gadgets for better living or something like that. And the night lights remind me of that presentation, because we go through just a lot of these different gadgets that sometimes we don't even think of, or that we know that are available. And gadgets for better living. Anyway, so yeah, good point. The lighting. And again, keeping your pathways clear. You know, if you have a spouse that likes to leave their clothes on the floor, you know, stuff like that. And pets too. You know, we have a dog, and most people I meet have pets. And we know how beneficial they are and how wonderful they are for companionship and, you know, positive health effects and things like that. But, you know, they can potentially be a tripping hazard as well. So just something to think about there. Yes, Marilyn.
Well, you hit on it in the meantime. I sat at the end of the bed and I took my shoes off.
Uh-huh.
And then I walked into the other room and I come back and I fell over my own shoes.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Were you okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. And then that makes me think of another example. There was a lady that, you know, the comforter and the bedding had kind of slipped off the bed, and it was on the floor in the corners, and, you know, she got up and turned the corner of the bed and she tripped on the comforter that had kind of fallen off the bed. So it's being aware of a lot of different things, and we do our best to avoid everything that we can, but that's good. It's good to be aware. So our backyards, again, this is going to be real individualized, but it's just kind of a reminder as far as keeping the pathways clear, keeping the leaves picked up. Do we have a patio? Do we have a deck? You know, is there a pool? Just what kind of safety measures do we have to have in place? You know, do we like to barbecue? And I thought I silenced my phone. I'm so sorry. So do we need to cover the barbecue or the grill, or is it safe for us to even use something like that anymore? So just thinking about those things, and who's going to maintain the backyard. So kind of back to the landscaping, the mowing, anything like that. And maybe some people have wanted to put in a simpler landscape. I know I've kind of gotten rid of some plants that I feel like have just been more maintenance than I thought they would be, basically. Or if you like to garden, maybe there's certainly ways that we can adapt how we garden. So do a raised bed. Maybe it's difficult to, you know, bend over, or if you can sit on a stool and sit on something and do some weeding or do some planting. But maybe it's time to bring that gardening bed up to your level, basically. And that would work perfectly. Or do some patio gardening, growing, you know, herbs. That doesn't take a whole lot. This picture, you know, shows a couple of those examples in terms of, you know, there's a couple of window boxes there that could work, and the raised bed there. So, yeah. Anything with people's backyards? Again, lighting, you know, if you like to go out in the evening, perhaps, you know, people that sitting out on their patio or their deck, or, you know, if you're still in a place that some people like to do fire pits, you know, again, it's just all going to depend on what you're comfortable with and what you like doing and things like that. But maybe some solar lighting in the back, or the motion lights in the back, same thing that you would have in the front, basically. So, okay. My last, I kind of had some random tips and ideas to think about that I felt like maybe didn't fit in any particular category, really. But, you know, a really easy, maybe not so expensive, I guess it would depend on the cost of the doorknob and how many doors you have, but changing out your doorknobs and having a lever system shown here versus a doorknob that has to be twisted quite a bit. So if you are having some trouble with your hands, you know, arthritis, or I have these levers going in and out of my house because I can use another body part to open them. You know, I've got sacks of groceries or whatever, and I use my elbow or my backside, you know, so I like the levers. I mentioned earlier, making sure maybe taking out any chairs that have wheels or chairs that swivel back and forth. That's kind of a red flag for me. And when I meet someone that's a little bit older, it probably goes without saying, but, you know, making sure our smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are working, changing out those batteries. And like I said, maybe having someone else, if it requires you to get up on a higher surface, just maybe asking someone else to do that, you know. I know people that have moved their laundry facilities, their washer dryer, to their first floor. They have somehow added it on to their kitchen, or they had just an extra bedroom in the home, that kind of a catch-all room, I guess. I've seen people do that, just so they don't have to go up and down the basement steps anymore. And some basement steps are not very safe. I mean, they can be very narrow. The stepping surface can be pretty small, so something to think about. Firearms, you know, I'm not a huge fan of those anyway, but keeping those in a safe place, or, you know, even off the property. This becomes especially more of a consideration when you have people in the home with cognitive issues. So early dementia, probably better. Checking in with Skype or a video chat app, Lifeline, Life Alert, some of those. There's a lot of different services now that, if you do find yourself in a predicament, like a fall, or we've certainly had people that I've met that they found themselves, they took a bath and for whatever reason, they could not get themselves out of the bathtub. So again, like Marilyn mentioned earlier, having that cell phone there or some other call, alarm, alert system in the home that you can get out of those situations. Consulting right at home. I love to be a resource for people, even whether you need services with us or not. I just want to direct people in the right direction and help them find what they need. And I thought this was kind of neat. This was something that I found not that long ago, but if going out to get your mail becomes a concern, especially in the winter, and I know my mailbox is out by the street, but I guess it's not as much of a concern, but just moving that mailbox to your front door and having a mail catcher or putting the mailbox, just right next to your front door, and you don't have to worry about trying to get outside to get it. Sometimes people have mail just in a P.O. box. If it's not possible, I guess, to put, I'm in a neighborhood where the mailboxes are by the street. And so I even wonder if, I don't think the post office would maybe even let me put a mailbox because the mailman goes by in the truck. And so I don't know, that would be something to look into, but you could have everything delivered to a P.O. box perhaps and pick that up once a week or have someone do that for you. So lots of different things to think about and to consider. And did anybody think of anything else? That is all I have for my information, and I need to add to it based on y'all's comments. So that's great. That's great.
I don't have a comment that you're going to add to, but I remember back in the 50s, I grew up in a 4-story house counting the basement, and the laundry was down there, and my mother had it moved up to the 2nd floor.
Okay.
Because that's the bedroom level, and that's where everything was.
Exactly.
It was back in the early 50s.
Nice. Smart lady.
Yes.
Yep. Very good. Yeah, so just trying to think about how you can consolidate your activities and maybe trying to keep your life all on one level. We have people that their living room turns into a bedroom. It's just people that are pretty adamant about staying in their homes, and they just kind of do what they need to do to accomplish that goal. And if that means they're not in an actual bedroom, then that's what it means, so yeah. But if any way I can answer anybody's questions or provide any insight, and Scott too, that's exactly what he does all the time, is provide recommendations for people through Habitat. So that's
this was really thorough. So that was it was nice to get a refresher on a lot of things that I had already forgotten. So just a couple of small pieces of advice, some kind of general things.
Yes.
I'm not certain if you talked about contrasting colors, but that can be really helpful as well. Make sure that the walls and your floor isn't the same color.
Yes, that is good. I tend to bring that up more when I'm for people with dementia, but it can certainly be beneficial, I think, for anybody. I mean, as our vision changes as we get older, that could be a concern. So yeah, contrasting walls and floors. And I did talk about having, if you do need a rug, having a brightly colored rug versus something that's black or brown or darker colors and stuff, that that's gonna stand out more. But yeah, exactly.
And then a piece of advice for people who want to maybe invest a little bit more, maybe start to think about moving walls around or widening doorways. So if you're going to go through the process of making some significant renovations to your house, I think it's important to make sure that you get a contractor who has experience with this.
Yes.
For a few different reasons, but also if they're not asking you questions about what you want and what your strengths are and what some of the areas that you struggle with, then you should move on and you should find somebody else. If they come in and they say, this is what we're going to do this and this and this, and they haven't bothered to actually get your input or your family's input, that's not a good sign. And also, I would recommend somebody who has a team. And what I mean by that is, if the contractor thinks that they have all the answers without consulting somebody from the medical field or an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, that would also concern me. So if they have somebody come in to do an evaluation other than just them, I think that that's a good sign that they understand what they're doing and that they have a good process. So I would highly recommend somebody that follows that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Marilyn has another comment.
Well, it goes back to the post office. It's up to the post office where you can put your box.
Okay, well, that's
They have
kind of
to
what I was
approve
thinking.
They have to approve it.
Yeah, that you just can't put
Put
it
it wherever you want to.
anywhere you want. Yeah, exactly. So I guess, yeah, if you cleared that hurdle and asked them if that was something that you could do, and then I guess, if not, then plan
Well, if
B.
they drive by on the street, they ain't going to get out of the car and walk up and put it by your door.
I know. Well, of course, they'll do that if you have a delivery, or a box.
Yes,
but
right,
yeah,
right.
if it's normal mail, they
No,
won't do that.
They still do have house-to-house delivery, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah,
And in fact, now they're doing neighborhood boxes because they don't want to make any more stops than what they have to.
exactly.
and I
And that
found
makes-
out from the post office that they had too many accidents making left turns, so their route goes right, down to the right. And so when I missed the mailman here, and I missed him, I know he goes right next door, and then he goes to the corner and he turns right. And so if you know which way your mailman, when I lived up on Holiday Road, he went down and he turned left on the First Avenue, which he could do, but then he turned right and went all back in that area, all right turns.
Hmm.
So if you have to chase down that mailman, keep going to the right.
I love it.
I do want to mention too, because Scott had brought it up, working with contractors. The Livable Community Aging in Place group has another webinar on Wednesday, July 8th at noon, entitled "How to Work with Contractors." So
Oh, perfect.
that's the Greater Iowa City Area Home Builders Association is going to do that presentation, and I sent that in a link to everybody earlier this week, I think. But
And the Housing Action Team is also having a webinar on gadgets to remain in your home. So Stephanie mentioned something
Oh,
about
yeah.
some gadgets. So
Cool.
the presentation will cover some of those things.
Okay, good.
That's
good.
in August.
Okay. Very good. Well, this was fun. I could do this again.
yeah, thanks for joining us, Stephanie. Good
Yeah.
job on your first attempt at a Zoom
Thank you.
webinar.
I appreciate everybody joining us.
Yeah. Next week, we'll have Jeff Milton back to talk about current events, racism, quarantine, whatever topic we end up on. So same
Awesome.
link, 11:30.
Good.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'll be making this recording available. I'll send it an email.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Perfect. Have a good weekend, everybody. Happy Father's Day
Bye,
to all
everybody.
fathers.
Have a good weekend.
Okay.